I had to make a decision. It was clearly put to me. Go with the guy who is an experienced manager or go with Che. We have a special relationship and you know, I know you didn't reach here, but I had my parents manage me for a long time.
Yeah.
And when I had that opportunity, I've been signed a couple of times because after the 97 signing, the next big signing was in the year 2000 to Atlantic Records. And you know, there was this older cat who wanted to manage me and he said, if I get you a record deal, will you let me manage you? And we were like, yeah.
Oh.
And you know, he was able to walk me into the office of Ahmet Ertegun, who signed Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin. And he was actually talking to me like, yeah, Machel, I like what you do. This is an 80-something-year-old man in a sock tie, those ties that look like socks, in Atlantic Records, top floor, saying, yeah, I see what you do. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna send you to London to work with Craig David, that two-step music. And he was really into it. He was like, yeah, because just like me thinking the house music will work, he was like, Soca could work with the two-step beat.
Right.
But this guy got me in the room with the Ahmet Ertegun. I was feeling like this is a dream. But very quickly, when the record deal was not working and they would not, you know, take my lead as to listen to Soca and try to make Soca and it wasn't working, I'll never forget being out there in London, certain of failure. You know, it's really hard to know you're trying to make this record and break Soca music and the whole Trinidad and Tobago and Caribbean looking at you, but you know you're gonna fail because it's not working out. And I remember saying...
And you can't give that energy back either, back home.
No, you can't. And I remember saying my parents didn't know how to manage me in that world, but this guy who was older than me didn't know how to manage me in my age and in my ideas and in my, you know, age group. And I will never forget, I used to journal and I pray for, you know, the universe to send me somebody my age, somebody who is young and who could manage me and we could be out there bouncing shoulders together, and somebody who will be, I remember specifically writing down what I wanted, somebody who I could trust, somebody who my parents could trust, somebody who would make me not have to worry about money and worry about, you know, any shady business like my parents, because I had that trust of your parents. But just like Michael Jackson, when you know your parents can no longer manage you because it becomes a child-parent relationship, and you need a sort of friend-partner relationship. And that was in the year 2000. And I met Che in 2014.
Wow.
And I knew that was exactly what I had written. It took 14 years for it to show up. The universe will always answer your prayers, but you have to be on watch. And sometimes, and I've been through a lot of different managers from the year 2000 to 2014.
Oh, really? Okay.
And when I met Che, he wasn't even a manager.
Yeah.
I was a photographer.
He was a man.
He was just a guy with a, just period, just a man.
Yeah.
Well, tell me from your perspective how this all came to be, where you guys connected.
I was in Toronto doing my thing, being a photographer. Started up Manifesto, a community arts organization, because my studio was the meeting place and everyone was talking about wanting to make this change. So someone needed to step up and make the change and lead it.
Yeah.
So I took that responsibility on, and it grew quickly to be Canada's biggest, you know, hip hop celebration and all of these things.
I remember. I thought Che was a Cuban, to be honest with you.
Especially because I run an organization called Manifesto.
Is that matter? Exactly. I was like, who's this Che guy? He's Latino. That's my type of people. I like. Okay.
And then I was like, all right, I turned 30 years old. It's time to transition out of leading this, let some more leadership come in. And my office was right beside Dream Machine Studios, which was Circuit and Adrian Goff and that whole crew. And we just became friends because we'd always see each other through the window. And I was like, who's in the studio today? And they'd be like, who are you booking over there for the festival? So then we just became friends. But I would always encourage Adrian to go travel, because I was always all over the world, Jamaica, India, all over. I was like, yo, get some world perspective. Let's go travel. And he'd always joke about traveling and never go anywhere. And then he said, we're going to Trinidad. And I was like, yeah, right. You always talk about going this place, that place. He's like, no, come over. X, Tallest, an amazing visual artist. He had a whole crew of people. He's like, we're going to Trinidad. There's this artist that is looking for management. So I said, all right, cool. I'll come for the ride. We get on a flight. This is February 17th, 2014, Machel Monday. I didn't even know what I was coming for.
2014.
2014, Machel Monday. I land just knowing that we're meeting this artist, Machel.
What's up, everybody? It's Mauricio Ruiz, founder of the Manager's Playbook. If you've seen the podcast, you know I talk a lot about how the music business really works. Not the theory, but what it actually takes to build a career that lasts. Listen, I spent over 17 years working behind the scenes with artists, managers, and teams, helping them make smarter deals, build systems, and grow careers that actually scale. And there's one thing that I've learned. Most people aren't lacking talent. They're lacking a playbook and someone to help them execute it. That's why, for the first time ever, I'm opening up the Manager's Playbook Mentorship Program, a hands-on program where my team and I personally help you get clear on your strategy, build real momentum, and make better business moves in the next few months. Now, if you're serious about taking your career or your artist to the next level, this is your chance to work directly with us. Spots are limited, so don't wait. Click the link below, learn more, and book your call today. Let's build your playbook together. Now back to the pod.
Get to the car, and for some reason, Adrian says, X and Che, you're in my car. We're going to One Woodbrook Place. I didn't even know where that was. Now I know. I spent a lot of time there. Yeah. But that's an address of the towers in Trinidad. We pull up. Machel is there in his house by himself, and he greets us, welcomes us in. Beautiful energy right from the first entry into the house. I felt welcome like family, right? And he's just playing music, and then he's like, yo, I have this record that's bumping right now. He plays a sound bang. And I'm like, isn't that also the peak of Major Lazer, right? Major Lazer's peaking. We just landed in Trinidad. I've come to Trinidad a couple of times before, but I've always wanted to come in a cultural experience, not a family trip.
Yeah.
And so we're just talking about life and visions and everything. At this time, I'm just there. I'm showing him my photography at this point. I'm a photographer. Maybe one day I'll get to shoot you. And then we end up on the balcony, and we're like talking about the fact that he has a big concert tonight and that we should probably leave. And then he points down. He's like, yeah, that's where it's at, the National Stadium.
Yeah.
And it's gridlock. Like the whole Port of Spain is locked down with cars trying to get to this venue.
And you don't know that it's happening there prior to Machel saying.
I have no idea. I'm just innocently, I'm in the middle of doing manifesto community work, and I just get on this flight and land. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, cool, we're gonna meet this artist. So then
he didn't know it was a big deal.
He didn't know we're trying to get out of here.
To be honest, although I grew up in Toronto, I went to Caravana, all of that stuff, I was more a hip hop reggae head, right? I wasn't full up on Soca.
Yeah.
But then I came, saw what was going on. We said, all right, let's dip. We'll meet you at the concert. We go to the concert. That's where I first meet Lady Montano and Chow, who you just interviewed.
Yeah.
And I see them backstage running this huge, massive production. We get there. I get to glimpse on stage for a second. And it's a sea of people. The entire National Stadium is full. And he's performing and controlling this audience like an alchemist. Going like this, and the entire crowd goes like this, right?
Wow.
Goes to the left, everyone shifted. He moving energy around.
Yeah.
Later, he can talk to you about how he does that, and I've learned how he's done that.
Yeah.
But I witnessed that right away, and I was like, this is phenomenal. And not only that was musically excellent, but the production, the level of intention in terms of the delivery of a narrative and the cultural expressions that were on stage. Everything was to me, a Cirque du Soleil level, 4.5 hour Zumba aerobics performance. And I'm like, how does this man do this? Even just to remember that set list. I'm like, how do you deliver all of that? How do you have a catalog that big? Remember, I don't know who he is really.
Right.
So I'm blown away, and I go whisper in Adrian's ear. I'm like, yo, definitely manage him. And he looks at me, he's like, I'm going home tomorrow. I don't know what I would do with this. They're doing Miley Cyrus, Britney Spears, that's the world that they're in. So they're like, this doesn't match. Yet I grew up in rooted in culture. You were talking about the analogy of, the tip of the iceberg. Another good metaphor is soil. and you look at what grows underneath the soil, and if the roots are really rich and you water that, the tree will live forever and plant so many other trees, because like one seed can become an old growth forest with healthy soil.
Yeah.
And these guys are steeped in the healthiest soil, in my opinion, right? I'm watching what has been developed and cultivated beyond only Machel and the Montanos to a continuum of culture that comes from Calypso into the formation of Soca into et cetera, to Machel Montano.
Yeah.
And I'm witnessing this on stage. They're honoring it in a delivery of a performance at that level.
See, you see what happened there? Some people will just see it as an artist performing to manage. Che's seeing all these layers. That's the same thing I was saying about I was seeing things in layers.
Yeah.
So that is what I was praying for. Somebody who could come along and see in layers like how I see it in layers.
Yeah.
And the layers I seeing is not the layers he's seeing. But when we could map it onto each other, and then we could start to realize, oh, wait a second, this is beyond music. This is about life. This is about spirituality. This is about taking care of others, taking care of life.
Well, that's what I witnessed. So then I was supposed to go home the next day. The flights were booked for the next day. And I looked around, I was like, I'm not going home. Adrian and everyone else were like, I'm going home. And I
Did
looked
you
at
decide in that moment you're not going home because you just witnessed?
And I found out Carnival was next week.
So you didn't even know Carnival
and
was
my
before
origin,
that.
my
So he knew nothing. But he came
my origin story as a photographer.
A nomad. That's what you give it that way. It's called
Straight nomad.
gypsies.
nomad,
He's
yeah.
just
I'm like,
Yeah. Book a ticket. Want to come check? Yeah,
Let's
let's go.
go.
that's how I've lived my life from the
Yeah.
very beginning. As a
Yeah.
child, I would
Yeah.
just whatever.
That's
the
how
flow
we live
is.
in. That's how we live
Yeah.
in today, right now, and that's why we click together. But he stayed back.
Yeah.
There's a natural mystic blowing through the air. That's the mystic that we ride. We just flow on that energy, and wherever it takes us. There's another song. In New York, they want me, and I'm gonna be there. Wherever they want, we're gonna show up and bring an energy. So I decided to stay for that next little bit,
Big tune.
right? Director X decides to stay back. Carnival's next week. There's nowhere to stay. All hotels are booked. So the guy that linked everyone, he's like, I have a yacht. You can live on our boat. And the reason you're saying, am I
Not
seeing
bad.
all this stuff?
No. It wasn't even on the ocean.
It was in the yacht club. No, it was in
It
the
was
yacht
in
club.
your club, but not in the
No.
sea.
Oh, it's just parked.
It was just parked.
It was parked in the yacht
Oh,
club.
I thought it was going on.
No.
Okay.
I know when he said live on a boat, he was like, oh, nice life. But it was just a
It was
boat
still
on
a vibe.
stilts.
Okay.
It was definitely still a vibe. I've never lived on a boat before. Me and X know each other.
was a
but,
boathouse.
It was a
It was
boathouse. I live in a boathouse.
A dry
hotel.
dock boat.
Yeah.
But that was when I realized the power of the music to really uplift the spirit of a nation.
At
and
Carnival?
Joy,
Yeah.
produce joy, and bring people together, galvanize millions of people towards a common effort and feeling. Like that's when I said, all right, cool. Beyond Machel, the entire ecosystem is something I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And then I went
Something
home.
bigger.
yeah.
Something bigger. And this is somebody coming to see that. When I was recording with Atlantic Records and going to London and going to Norway and going to Sweden, with the biggest producers, Stargate and, all the famous guys, I know they were trying to find a hit record, but Merlin Music, but they weren't privy to what he just said, that this is a culture and this is something lifting up people's lives and this is something beyond Machel Montano and about the islands that needed addressing. And this was the person that was sent that I prayed for.
Wow.
And the last piece of this puzzle for me, when I was like, in no which way I'm saying this in a way of, I'm trying to have an ego, but I've had lots of opportunities in my life. They continually present themselves from the highest opportunities that people would die for. And I say no to a lot of them, right? But the reason I really locked in with Machel is we all went to Tobago, right? And this man had a performance again in Tobago. Like, I'm now in Carnival, I'm watching show after show after show after show. I'm like, whoa, this guy's a beast. Like, I've never met someone that has a similar kind of energy where it's like, oh, we don't need to sleep. We're just ready to go, can work 24 hours. Like, everyone else can go to sleep, and that's when the work really begins. Never met someone like that. And then I met him. But in the midst of all of that, we go to this little island for a little team lime, like a team get together afterwards. And he goes, oh, by the way, the vegetarian vegan food is over here for you. And I was like, while this guy's got all of this stuff going on, is the headliner of the entire carnival thing, he remembered I'm vegetarian and made sure my food, not someone on his team, him personally made sure I was taken care of to eat that day.
Are you in this moment while this is happening in your head remembering the journal? I'm like,
I have no recollection of that.
I will remember it,
But
because a lot of people don't remember that.
That is just me in the moment, but guess what? Today I am vegan also.
Right.
So it had to be that was an inspiration. But that's just how we roll, especially...
So what I'm asking more is, like, while he's coming along on this journey for the first time and he's seeing this, are you starting to see this guy in a bit of a different light?
At that point, we were
Not even.
I didn't even
hanging.
talk to them.
Not yet.
No, okay.
We
So-
just being how our parents bring us up.
Yeah.
That when other kids come to the house, everybody get the
Hospitality,
cornflakes.
yes,
Everybody
yes.
eating the cornflakes.
Yes.
Everybody doing whatever. Everything is to be shared.
Wow.
And we pay attention to detail. You know what I mean?
At that point, I wasn't a manager.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So we're just hanging out. I'm getting to report back to the managers and the management team, right? And so I go back to Toronto and I'm constantly going to that office in that studio saying, when are you going to sign
What are
Machel?
you doing?
When are you
Yeah,
going to sign
when is that?
Machel?
Yeah,
When's
yeah.
that going to happen? And then they said, why don't we just build a management division around you and you do it? And I was like, all right, cool. So I went down to LA.
Just like what you asked for when you were
Right,
younger. All right.
okay.
Cool. You know what I mean? And then I went down to LA. I remember having a meeting with Machel and Renee at their house in Van Nuys, that house that Addie and all those kids from Toronto used to rent out, and Wonder
I've been
Girl
there
and
before
everyone.
too, yeah.
These guys all rented the house and were
True.
there.
I didn't rent it. I slept on the couch, very hungover.
But it was a famous Toronto house.
Brown
for a little
coach? The
while.
brown coach?
I don't know what
She's like, not the brown coach, not the brown
Cut that
coach.
out. That's a brown couch. No, there was a black couch in like the kitchen. Maybe it wasn't brown. I don't know.
Anyways,
When I woke up, like, very hungover, actually.
Yeah.
I went to that
And then I
house.
found out it was Machel's house. I was like, oh my God. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
I'm the type of
Thank you
person.
for letting me stay there.
No. It's okay.
Appreciate it.
I'm the type of person that will go to a meeting like that, and I had flip chart paper, and I'm drawing out like
You
charts.
really?
Yeah, so
Really?
I went to meet Machel and Renee, had flip chart paper. By the end of it, he was just like, yeah, let's just do this. And then not only that, again, got in the car and drove me home. I was like, they're like, you need a ride home? I was like, I'm good. He's like, no, I'll go drive you home. And
Okay.
it just felt like family, honestly.
Yeah.
After that, like right away, I had to go for Hollywood Carnival. And I was like, we're going to get a hotel. They're like, no, stay at our house. Like it just immediately became fam.
That's dope. How do you know that this is the guy with having no experience to be your manager? Except the flip chart.
I mean, I was a flip chart guy too, because in our early stages, we would take Bristol board, sheets of Bristol board, and we would draw what our plans were.
Yeah.
And we would make flipping charts, like charts flipping out drawings. We want to fly here. So, I mean, I just saw that as an extension of how I like to move. But Che became very peaceful, a peaceful addition to our family. He was there. He was always showing up. Of course, he was never sleeping. He was always going. But quickly, I realized I never saw this guy get angry. He was very sociable, like to talk to people. And I didn't like talking to people. So I was like, yeah, this would be a good addition. Somebody who loved to talk and could socialize. I would just be hanging out. But he was honest. There was something that was pure and honest, and I was able to recognize the qualities that I said I wrote down in this diary. Up to this day, I still try to look to find that diary.
What
If
do you
I could
remember?
go out just to show people that this is actually what happened. And at some point in time, I remember the other side of the management team that he was working with was trying to get me in the room to work with Britney Spears or work with this one and do records. And I was really not feeling to do that. I was really wanting to be managed into zero. I always tell Che, help me go to zero. Help me start over. Clean up all the bad
responsibly.
business. Yeah.
Responsibly go to zero, yeah.
And then we could map out a new vision together.
I love to understand what that meant, because Che's mentioned this to me before, is that, two things that you tasked them with is responsibly getting you back to zero, and then finding a guide, a spiritual teacher.
So let me map it out and bring it right back to the point of why I chose him.
Please.
Because, okay, with our parents, my parents were not trained in the music business. Everything that they learned, they were school teachers, and one became a geologist and a guidance counselor. So they were good with kids and people and direction. But the music business, they were learning it on the fly.
Yeah.
Reading books, buying some of the best books about the business. And, we just thought, okay, we have to have our own publishing company. Okay, we have to have a production company. Okay, we have to have a recording company. And then we had like 6, 7 companies. We were paying tax, and we didn't really know how to do the business. We were trying to make up contracts, and eventually we had a business that was a plethora of things that was draining energy. It wasn't a well-oiled aerodynamic machine for global success. And it was just too much of things happening for me. And I was like, Che, there's too many shows, there's too much band members, there's too much office people, there's too much companies. I just need to come down to Machel, the human being, and the art that I want to make. And I need somebody to help me sort all of this out. It's like a room full of stuff that I need to move things out of and clean up so that I can find myself. And he understood that. While the others were saying, no, you need to be the iron while it's hot. You need to go and record with this one. You need to go in studio. That was feeling like pressure. He was the only one in the team that wasn't pressuring me to do anything. And if I say, let's rest for a week, he'll be like, all right. Or let's go on the beach. He'll be like, okay. He was always, so that was kind of reassuring that this person actually don't have a problem. Before, if I wanted to sleep in today, my mom would be, no, you can't sleep in today, you have to work. And they'll be like the kind of Michael Jackson, Joe Jackson levels. You know what I'm saying? And because she's trying to take care of her son and make sure, But Che was always like, yeah, let's just kick it. Let's just not do it. And that was the time when I had to make a decision. It was clearly put to me. Go with the guy who was an experienced manager, or go with Che. And I just chose somebody that I felt had the vibe. Somebody that I felt they may not have the experience as the other person. They may not have the connects, but they have the ability to learn it. I knew that the ability was there. I knew he was intelligent, but I knew he was calm. And I know he was honest, and I know he was friendly. And those characteristics stood out for me. That made me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I just feel like we could say anything, and we were like buddies, and we could just chill. If we just had to chill and do nothing else, I could work for him. I could stop singing and I could go work for Che. Whatever Che doing, and he will hire me because I have a little bit of sense.
I would hire him in a second.
Yeah, exactly.